What's going on, everybody? This is your boy, Mr. E, boss of the Southside Bosses, coming to you here live on BOSS Radio's Boardroom Stories, where we bring y'all some of the most intriguing people and projects that's going on in the community. Usually we stick to Texas, but we're going to travel outside of Texas to the east coast of the South and talk to Courtney Omega about her Plantations for Reparations project that she has going on. Something that I think every Asiatic in the United States or the North American continent should definitely be intrigued about as well. So definitely tune in, turn up his zone out. We are going to be available on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon MP3, Deezer, and any other your favorite streaming service. So go ahead and find Boardroom Stories right now. Hit that like button, that follow button, or that subscribe button, and share it to all your family and friends. This way we can get this knowledge out there for everybody who needs it in order to be able to utilize it and make their lives better. Again, we're going to be having Courtney Omega on for Plantations for Reparations on really soon. So after a word from one of our sponsors and a little bit of music from me, your boy Mr. E the Gutter Baby, aka Boss of the Southside Bosses, we'll be back with Courtney Omega on the line, and you already know you listening to
Southside.
Feel the best you and save with any of our skincare sets. With either soap and oil or soap and butter or a combination of all three. Heal your skin and keep it with the shine and healthy enough to withstand the sun. No matter what your skin needs, Southside Beauty Care will continue to help you through those rough patches of skin to the smoothness of butter dripping off of your body. Mix and match until you find a skincare regimen that's tailored for your skin and designed to obtain perfection. Come to Southside Beauty Care and see what we have designed specifically for you.
No, man. They've been trying very hard to keep me out this game. I just got one question. What you afraid of?
I think we're gonna be friends.
Hardly. You niggas never invited this boy to the party. Standing outside in the cold rain, looking through the window, see you turn it up like car keys. So low with the mind frame, where they came with my game, cause ain't a damn thing gon' change. Stayed in my lane, probably for pace of a Dre, saying to myself what 8 years gon' change. So I focus on the game plan, to put them all on the knees like they about to say amen. Got them crying like Rayman, and the strange man, all I wanted was the screens for the bandstand. So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you'll be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm coming for the glory.
The cloud had opened up, and I've been seen in all of my glory. Suddenly, the cloud had opened up, and I've been seen in all of my glory. Suddenly,
So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm coming for the glory. So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm coming for the
We're gonna
glory.
be friends.
Remember that little scroll talking about what he's gonna do to obtain success. He was 10 toes down, made progress, while the congregation hated like Congress. I can't say I have a status, but Nipsey brought the hustle back, so now the bosses got this. We about the block back, can't stop that for the suburbs, throw the way to the projects. No longer treated like objects, tossed to the side, we glide, no matter with the weather. I remember living hard, so I have to stay fly, so baby, you fucking with a treasure. This ain't like a scary movie, and it might just be a little bit gory. Nothing else is gonna stand in between me and glory.
We're gonna be friends.
the cloud had opened up, and I've been seen in all of my glory. Suddenly, the cloud had opened up, and I've been seen in all of my glory. Suddenly,
So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm coming for the glory. So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm coming for the
We're
glory.
gonna be friends.
My mom told me not to ever let these cowards play me. You lose it all in a blink of an eye. So true, while they pointing at the white man, they planted on my back while holding a big knife. Now they're gonna need a crossbow, cause I need 50 feet before I take a seat. Back to the wall, no room for slipping. Let me see it all when it comes to take a G. There's no fakery, the money come fast like a sale at the trap bakery. You could be kidding me, I'm still here to sweet lick like you some kind of candy man. This is for the time I spent. I know that baby out there is checking for me. I guarantee it's not me, but the glory.
We're gonna be friends.
suddenly, the cloud had opened up, and I've been seen in all of my glory. Suddenly, the cloud had opened up, and I've been seen in all of my glory. Suddenly,
So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm coming for the glory. So I aim to get the stacks to the ceiling. When you hear this, you be feeling my story. I used to only want the money, but now I'm
I
coming for the
think we're
glory.
gonna be friends.
BOSS Radio, Southside Bosses, its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the talk show host or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of the site or the radio station, and opinions between talk show hosts may conflict. This site does not endorse anything as the truth. That you will have to judge for yourself. But we try to speak the truth on the owner's behalf and reserve the right to question the supposed truth. In this time of misinformation, government-controlled media, and government corruption, it is sometimes hard to get to the truth, but we must try. It is not our intention to libel, discriminate, make hate, or annoy anyone. We believe that it is our constitutional First Amendment right of free speech to voice our opinions and our duty to the Constitution and country to expose the truth. This site takes no responsibility for the opinions of others and the postings of comments in chat rooms or forum posts.
All right, everybody, we are back in the building. This is your boy, Mr. E, and we have a great interview here today. We have my girl, Courtney Omega from Colored Only Cafe and also Plantations for Reparations. How are you doing this afternoon?
I am great. I'm feeling very much
recording
in
progress.
Looking really forward to this conversation. Thank you again for having me.
Oh, anytime. It was a blessing having you on. You have some knowledge that we definitely need to get out there because you dab in something that I have not even heard of before, but it sounds like it'll be very beneficial for the Asiatic people of North America. So we definitely want to get that information out here. But first, I want to talk to you about your Colored Only Cafe. Tell us a little bit about that. What is that about?
Okay, so I love talking about the Colored Only Cafe and the service that we provide, the engagement opportunities with the food service business. Primarily, the reason how this all came about was years ago, after losing my home, suffering an eviction in Coconut Grove, Miami, Florida. I was actually at church and I was washing mason jars with another member of the church. She was telling me that there used to be these food truck lots in Texas, and these beverages, the teas did really well. Now, I've never been a fan of tea. But, I make handcrafted lemonade, and, I mentioned to her, do you think that would work here? And she said, as long as you have a spot to kind of push it, I can't imagine that it wouldn't, because, everybody loves, good ice cold beverages, especially places that is hot.
Yes.
So, with that being said, I started doing my Grove Aid Lemonade. I was in Coconut Grove, Miami, Florida, where I was actually a council member, the youngest elected council member in Coconut Grove, Miami, Florida. And so I started pushing my lemonades at the farmer's market. And within 3 months, I was able to have enough to, secure another condo in the area. So that was where my food kind of business history or legend started. And I primarily was doing just lemonades, but there happened to be a woman that does a veggie food event here in Atlanta. She was visiting the market one weekend, the same weekend that I was debuting my kale. I would do salads in a jar. I call them stackets instead of salad, stackets.
Okay.
And she was visiting the market, and she said, hey, I do this veggie food expo in Atlanta. And I said, I used to live in Atlanta. And I told her that, I used to go to Casilli's. And Casilli's is the famous raw food experience. And so she said, she's going to have a booth at this veggie food, and we're going to put you right next to her. And I was like ecstatic. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, here I am, debuting my kale salads, and I'm being invited to do this event. But it so happened that I was not able to make the trip that same October because I had a convention. And so I wasn't able to come for the Veggie Taste. And then the following year was COVID. And so I moved back up to Atlanta during COVID. And, I, instead of just the lemonades, now I had the lemonades and I had the salads. And Atlanta just really, supported the business. But what happened was a good friend of mine, he was launching his book, which is 3 Steps to End Racism Right Now. And subsequently, I have been talking with, I had broken ties with my original business partner, an investor who came on board with me when I had, my lemonade business, and he did not want to sell me the name of the business. I'm not going to say what the name of the business is because I'm not going to give him any.
Right, don't give him no promotion. We don't need none of that.
I'm not going to give him any promotion. But he told me, hey, well, because the dispute was he felt like I shouldn't get ownership of the name because I didn't just come up with it independently. And I felt like I had, and he challenged me. He said, well, then just make up another name. And I said, okay, well, I've always liked colors. Yes. So Colored Only Cafe it was. And my Colored Only Cafe is doing far better than what our original business
I could just imagine. And
it's gotten great support. It's a great conversation starter. But I do want people to understand that Colored Only, it's not anything racist with that. It is focusing on the foods that we provide, because we do know that colored foods provide the best nutrients, the best minerals, the best flavor. So I don't know about y'all, but I only want colored foods.
Hey, I hear you.
I don't want to eat nothing without no spice, no flavor,
right.
None of that. So that's honestly where the affection for that title came from. But I am, of course, I'm the product of a historian. I'm the product of a social justice aware, warriors. So, of course, the culture part of Colored Only, the Colored Only experience is a huge significant impact as well. But the food is colored because this is the best food.
Right.
But, we prioritize plant-based cuisine. So at Colored Only Cafe, it's not about who we serve, it's what we serve. And that is food that is rich in culture, cuisine that is rich with history, and conversation that is rich with passion.
Oh, wow. That is beautiful. Because, I know if I go to the store and see a gray apple, it's going to stay right there.
As it should.
So I just want to say thank you for that, because in our communities, there's not a lot of people that push promote healthy eating or healthy living. You hear about it all the time, and then you turn around and see that McDonald's line long, and it's like, did you just hear what I said?
And that's the part of the conversation part, because also, brother, I said, how can we be having these revolutionary conversations and riding over to Chick-fil-A? It don't match up. It don't match up.
Not at all.
We're talking about down with, how we're going to reform and how we're going to build and how we're going to do this. But we going over to Starbucks?
Yeah, we can't even breathe right. We can't even breathe right. We're talking about having a revolution.
Exactly. The first thing that you can revolutionize is your diet. That's the first thing you can revolutionize.
Exactly. Like the doctors always tell you, whenever there's something wrong, the first question they ask you is, what about your diet? What are you eating? Are you eating this? And if you're not, you need to eat this. You need to drink more water. That's the first thing that doctors come to us with. So you would think that you would start off your day thinking about, what am I going to eat?
What are you consuming?
Exactly.
What are you intaking? Exactly.
I think once we do revolutionize that diet, we'll revolutionize the world. So I want to give you props on that.
You can also see how, you have clarity.
Yeah.
And you can actually see how things are, if you're always stuffing, food down because you got to get to this job. What happens when you're slowing down and actually creating and crafting your meals and you're growing your food? You may see that, this job it perpetuates the cycle.
Exactly.
Rush to this, and let's beat, and you're there all day. And another thing our people have got to get really serious on is this alcohol intake. Y'all, alcohol intake is first of all, most of it is sugar.
Right.
It's not even.
Right.
It's not even. You wouldn't consume some sodas and juices because you talk about the sugar intake, but a lot of your favorite alcohol, especially your mixed drinks and beverages, have the same amount, if not more, sugar content.
Exactly. Yeah. I just switched over from white sugar to agave, so that's what made me think about my liquors. I actually, if I do consume liquor, it'll be tequila. Tequila comes from agave. They don't use sugar, except for those cheap tequilas. You know, cheap tequila, like just pour the sugar in there, like act like it's Kool-Aid. Pour the sugar in there. You know what I'm saying? But you're right about that, because I just had to fight off an alcohol problem, and that's when I learned about the agave and the difference between agave and sugar. I'm drinking my little hot tea right now with agave in it. I don't put sugar in any of my meals anymore because of the fact that sugar is for one, is bleached. It's processed sugar. It's not right. It's not real sugar. So it's going to affect you adversely. So you're right about that. We definitely need to fight off the fact that we are alcoholics at heart. I'm saying so.
At heart. And we don't realize or appreciate that we're passing on the culture to the next generation.
Exactly.
That we always have to have, alcohol has to be present at every birthday celebration, funeral, wedding, baby shower, and you got to have some liquor there. You know, up until this year, and it literally was because, you know, I got married, but I hadn't consumed alcohol in about 9 years. And prior to that, I had literally only drunk alcohol about 10 times in my life. My first husband was, you know, he wasn't into alcohol, and you know, so, and I was married at 19. So, you know, it just wasn't something that I kind of grew up with, but it is something, especially coming from an HBCU, it is something that I was very much aware of. That, you know, we have an obsession with having a good time, being with liquor, with alcohol.
Exactly. So once we kick that and also kick these other little drug habits, and we'll be able to see a lot of success. So
it's clarity.
Yes,
it's clarity.
It
but again, it all goes back to diet. Once you really start looking at what you're intaking, a lot of that is very much, it just falls in line. You know, if you've run, you know, on the tread, or you've worked out, or you're building, and then to turn around and to, you know, just have like a messed up diet, it doesn't compute. It won't make sense.
Your body is like, which one do you want to do, man? We got to pick one. Pick a struggle.
Pick a struggle. Pick a struggle.
Well, that's beautiful right there. I'm glad you out there in the community, especially over there in Atlanta and Miami, because, you know, I'm from Atlanta. So to know that we got people, that Atlanta is a big hub, especially when it comes to good living and eating right and stuff like that. So I'm glad that we have you on here today.
I love it. They have been so supportive. You know, I just really feel like there's no other place in really this nation that you know, I think Black people can live just comfortably without having. I haven't had a job. I have not had to have a 9 to 5 since I've moved back.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
So it's been awesome.
Getting on that hustle.
My money comes from consulting and, you know, the food business. I have not had to, you know, so I could really treat this as this my, you know, bread and butter, and not like it's a side hustle.
Right. Well, that's the definition of jumping off the plantation. And now that you jumped off the plantation, you're trying to purchase a plantation now. Is that correct?
This is true, because plantation politics. Let's have a conversation without the emotions. I know that is hard for us because we have so much trauma with the history of plantation. But plantation politics does work. The reason why it works is because it is a village. It's a village that has been capitalized upon. Okay, remember, you know, when we were, and I'm saying this with all due respect, because I do know that we have a good amount of our population that believe that we were already here, that we weren't stolen from Africa. And I'm going to just first and foremost say, I do believe that a good portion of that is certain. It's certain. I do not believe we all came from Africa. There's no way.
Some of us, but not all of us.
There's too many of us.
Right.
But for the ones that were kidnapped, they were, the village way of life was studied.
Right.
The way Black people lived here, white people had no control of, because we were already here first.
Exactly.
And so there was no way of putting us into this system, because they actually had no system. They were just as poor and just as ignorant and living, didn't know how to really live along the land. They were the immigrants coming over.
Exactly.
We were already here. So it wasn't like, it's like if somebody comes comes into your neighborhood, they don't come to your neighborhood telling you what to do. They
Right.
just trying to get in where they fit in.
Exactly.
And that's what they were doing. The culture of the village, the culture of the plantation lifestyle, that was actually something that was studied by missionaries. And so this is how we know Christianity, slavery was backed by missionary trips that were done under the guise of religion. This is what funded those trips, so they could study how we were living, how we were creating these flourishing societies, right? Our culture, the village culture was studied for years before the exchanges were starting to be made and we were stolen and brought over here. And once we brought over here, because you understand that for villages to work, it was mutual exchange. It was, hey, I'm growing this, you're teaching this, and this is the way on it, and so on that it worked.
Barter system.
What they did here with plantations were they exploited labor for free and capitalized on it, and this is how it was built. And so that's why I said when we remove the emotions from it, we can understand and appreciate that it works. It works, for anybody. That's why we can sit around here and we can applaud people like Rihanna and, Jay-Z or Beyonce or what have you. But you have to understand, for anyone to accumulate that much amount of wealth, somebody has to not be getting paid for their work.
Right.
Someone has to be exploited for their labor.
Right.
Okay. And so you can't sit up there and tell me that you don't want to knock Drake's hustle or, Lil Wayne or whoever. But me trying to purchase Plantations, how could you do such a thing?
Right.
A sister told me, and I say sister loosely because, her mentality was off. But she had never told me, oh, there's no way I could live on a plantation. My ancestors won't let me do that. But baby, you're working at Dollar General.
Thank you.
You think your ancestors are applauding that? Like our thinking is so twisted.
Exactly.
You're working at Dollar General and you're going to Chick-fil-A every day for lunch, and that's success. You think your ancestors are, they're hooray.
It's like
and that's why.
I'm sorry. I just want to say this. It's like they work a whole hour of their life just to be able to go have a Chick-fil-A meal.
That is it. And in most fast food restaurants, if you're working, that's retail, but if you're working in fast food restaurants, most of them is 2 hours to even afford a value meal or the most cost-effective meal. Right. Because most of these places are not, minimum wage. And so we really have, I always do this, I say with my husband, is we have to shift perspective. And that's what Plantations for Reparations has allowed me to do. And the reason why I say that this setup does work, the plantation politics does work, is because plantations at its core are what? Multifamily properties. Right. So we can have all of these discussions with these real estate gurus about buying up complexes, buying up compounds, buying up multifamily properties, when at the end of the day, that's all plantations were. Yeah. They were multifamily properties. Generations of families lived on all these properties. It's just that we weren't living in the big house. But I tell you, this one, I'm coming for the big house. I want the big house. I don't want the cabins in the back. I don't want to, just put up some tiny homes on some extra acres. I want the big house. Right. Because in the big house, we're not talking about just, mansions. We're talking about literally homes that were constructed for multi-generations to live. Right. So you're talking about in one particular venue, you're talking about 4 or 5 families can live in one. They have wings, not rooms, but wings. We have to start thinking about this in relation to the conversation of community building. Because if you're living in an area that does not have, your tax in mind, does not have your welfare in mind, what you do is you live in a neighborhood. You don't live in a community. And so plantations are a way for us to reestablish those communities and municipalities. I would love to take all the credit, but it absolutely was not. My dad always used to grow up. My dad grew us up in thinking and knowing that there's no such thing as an independent, brilliant idea. Right. And I would like I said, I would love to say, oh yeah, I thought this all myself, but this absolutely was a vision. It came to me. So I can't sit up here and think that my ancestors didn't have a hand in that.
They had to have, because like you said, the mentality of Asiatics in North America, the so-called black people here, is the fact that when you talk about something that is could be emotionally traumatic, they can't take the emotions out. They've automatically, plantations. I'd rather stay in my 1-bedroom house with all 4 of my kids. And it's like, hold on. Hey, whoa. Do you hear what you're saying right now? You're turning.
Do you hear what you're saying?
Yeah, you're turning your face against something that could be beneficial for everybody in your family and help them grow, and trying to stay in a stagnant situation just because of your feelings. It had to be your ancestors, because they've already gone through those emotions. They don't have those emotions.
They've already gone through and they processed it. And you know what I also say too? I had this very interesting, kind of a similar conversation, brother, with someone, and they said, I can't live on a plantation because my people's blood is all over there. And I said, ma'am, there ain't a place in this country where our blood ain't soaked in some soil.
Preach.
That just because it's been redeveloped, and I work for property developers, I know how they work with zoning to get properties turned over.
Yep.
To make sure that some history is hidden, because if you scan any country, you're talking about complete towns, communities, homes that were destroyed.
Wiped
if
out.
not, and let me also be very clear too, in a lot of these places that were black owned and black run towns, they didn't destroy them. They would kill and ravage us and move us out. And guess what? They would move right in next day.
Gentrify it.
Next day, blood on the walls and everything.
Yep.
They get the building, they get the redeveloping, and they're moving right in. So don't sit up here and think that anything on this country's soil is brand new.
Right.
No, there's roots run deep. Some of these places were, flooded and they put lakes over them. But some of these places were immediately occupied.
Right.
The whole towns were immediately occupied, where they would come in and they would just, move right on in. They would kill our families and bury the bones in the backyard, and they moved their families right on in. These are complete cities.
Right.
Complete cities. So let's not be so naive to think that only trauma that black people experienced were on plantations.
Exactly. I mean, look at Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're about to come across the 100-year anniversary of that. That means that there's still people alive that actually witnessed and went through that. And
we have as of June 1st, which actually, interesting enough, was the first day that I ever went on this particular plantation property last year. It was the 100th year. So we're now 101 year anniversary of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We also have Eatonville.
Yep.
Eatonville was, of course, the new town that was created after Rosewood was destroyed. We have, and we have many, like I said, there are lakes, that they have they flooded black communities. We have Central Park. When we think of Central Park, we think of, at best, we think of, just the New York kind of. At worst, we think of the Central Park Five,
right?
But we don't think about the fact that this was a black thriving community that was destroyed, and they planted a big park over it. And being a former elected official, I know that this does happen a whole lot more routinely, literally, than what we care to realize. So we think about not being involved in politics. Literally, right now, there are zoning. There are there are people that are paid to reconstruct these communities, and they're paid to reimagine what this would look like with moving all of us out of them.
Exactly.
So if that's the case, and I know for a fact that is, why not plantations, and why not right now?
Exactly, because we get on the right plantation. Hopefully, it hasn't been zoned for a city or anything. It's outside of city limits. That gives us full control.
And most of them are.
Yes,
most of them are. There are 50,000 still standing plantations. There are about 30,000 that are still viable, like livable. because that's another thing too. We have to remove. We think of these plantations as being like these, antiquated, decrepit. No, honey, these families have been keeping these plantations up for years.
Wow.
And let me tell you another thing that people fail to realize: because of the plantations having the historical value, most of them are on the historic registration, and that means they get government funding to be sustained and maintained. This means this is privately owned, government-funded venues that literally get the same type of funding that a project would get, but they are for-profit.
Wow.
They're for-profit.
Well, see, that's what we refuse to pick up a book and read. We'll be if we knew about that, if we knew better, we'll do better. And just simply knowing that it's a government funded, and see right now that word right there, government, it seemed to be a stigma on that word. When people hear government funding, they automatically hear like, oh, welfare and food stamps and projects and things.
Of it being plantations,
exactly,
right. Multi-million-dollar, multi-acre property that they can profit from.
Wow,
they can profit from.
Wow, just to live there. You get paid to live there.
They do weddings. They do conferences. They do Civil War reenactments.
Yes,
they do.
Yes, I know that, Georgia.
Of these properties, and some of these properties are still the original families of people that own slaves.
Wow. Yeah. So we need to get that from them.
The property.
Yeah, we need to get that from them. We need to be finding ways that if we talking about tearing down statues and stuff like that, taking the Confederate flag. That stuff ain't never hurt us, but this plantation house can help us.
Thank you.
So let's say
this is the number one thing for generational wealth.
Exactly.
This is it.
So let's say you come across somebody and they're a hard sell. What's your go-to? How do you get them to see the bigger picture instead of thinking with their emotions? How do you go across that?
Well, quite honestly, I mean, hard sells are all day. When I first rolled this out, interestingly enough, we first launched this. It was we were trying to get up the first installment of the earnest deposit for this particular plantation here in Georgia. It's in Athens. And first and foremost, people didn't like it being called a plantation. That was the first thing. They were like, words of power, and I do believe that as well. I'm a journalist.
Right.
I am a journalist, a publicist. So we changed it from plantation to village. This is what the plan is, to take a plantation to make it a village. And this is something not just I changed in just words, but this is something that was already at play, but actually having that on the literature. So that when people got this package, they didn't just see of the plantation. They saw the plantation to village initiative, right? But that's the first thing. But what I started to see, brother, to tell you the truth, the people that were the hard sells, I was wasting time. Right. Because these people, like I told my husband all the time, I'm out of the business of trying to convince people. Because I know for a fact, I was an elected official. I served office for two out of the 4 years. I don't mean every once in a while. Every meeting, it was hard for me to get 10 people to City Hall for those meetings. And this was someone that had literally almost got 1,000 votes, but now it's hard for me to get 10 people to every meeting. Yeah. So I'm out of the business of trying to convince people, for their benefit. But what I do tell people what I do tell people when I'm having this conversation, because I know that it's an uncomfortable conversation. It's not something that people are just, it's not an easy, it's not an easy road to toe, so to speak. Right. So what I do tell people is that, imagine that a family member was tortured, was, for years, was brutally assaulted, was eventually murdered, and then you have to turn around and pay rent to live there. That's what you're doing. Wow. The conversation is done. You can't say nothing to that, because that's what you're doing. Wow. That's what you're doing. You're paying rent to stay in a place where your ancestor was all of this. So you can't talk to me about wanting to own a plantation when you are paying rent for a place where your family was probably lynched, beaten, brutally tortured, tormented, murdered.
Wow.
These are facts. These are facts.
Wow. Like, okay, so let's say corporations, like let's say we get, because a few years ago we know there was two big black banks that were that merged together to become a big billion dollar powerhouse. Are those people that you would go to in order to be able to see about getting them to invest into these, or how would that work?
Okay, so a funny thing about investors is they want their money back immediately. Right. And this is not that type of party. Okay. Because I don't plan on charging rent here at these plantation properties. We do plan on having it be a farm-to-table menu, even with colored-only cafe. So I'm not going the traditional investment route. What I am going is the contribution and gift route only. Okay. Now, if somebody wants to purchase, and this is through a trust, so this is not just me. Right now we have about 4 members. It's $1,000 to get in on the trust, and this means that nobody can sit over here and say, "Well, I gave $1 million, so my viewpoint is more important than the next person." Right. It's $1,000 to get in on the trust. And when you're in on the trust, we're having a conversation about how this is being developed, how this is being organized, and it's not about this is not about turning a profit. This is about a revolution, literally. We tend to look at, because of course I get a lot of people that say, "Oh, you got to tell T.I., you got to tell Killer Mike, you got to tell these people." Don't you think these people know?
Yeah, they know.
They know. Wow. And they don't care to get involved because, again, when you're talking about, there's no money in affordable housing. Everyone knows this. Right. And I'm not even doing affordable housing. I'm doing no rent housing. Wow. So this is not an initiative that is for the economically advanced, trying to figure out how to stack riches and create wealth. No, this is creating a generational opportunity. This is Plantations for Reparations initiative to move this vehicle forward and using housing to do it. Reparations is not about, and that's why I think that people need to understand, we need to throw that away. This is not about making money. Reparations is about repairing damage that has been explicitly done to our people. Right. And so we're not going to turn around and do that by figuring out how we're going to make money on those. Right. Now, when people say, "Well, why are you accepting gifts? Why isn't the government just giving it to you?" Well, that's not the case. Yeah,
they don't know how any of this works.
Right. That's not the case. And if I was going to wait for it, quite frankly, I think I would be in a worse position. Right. So what I do believe in is that this can very much be achieved by mutual aid funding. Now, if you only have $5, $10, $25 to give, I appreciate that as well, because guess what? That goes to keeping the website up. The website being managed every month is, $22, Right. If you're giving at least $100, that helps me create more press materials. That helps me get out, digital marketing. If you are giving at least $1,000, that gives you the opportunity to be a member of the trust, but it also gives an opportunity to be put directly towards the earnest deposit. So it's levels to this. But in no way, shape, or form am I constructing a way for us to, take this acres, and then we do this, and then we're doing this, and then therefore, we're all coming out with millions of dollars. That's not my interest. That's honestly not my interest. Right. So, wow. So don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say I don't knock anyone that does, but I think that our people have been exploited enough. That's just not what I'm interested in doing. Right. That's not what I'm not interested in charging, even people say, well, you could charge something for rent. I think energy in that field, I think ancestors have done enough. I think energy in the field, helping to cultivate the land, helping to, maintain the property. That is going to be that's how villages are done.
Right.
And again, I can't say that enough. That literally was the blackprint. I don't call it the blueprint. That was the blackprint that they stole.
Yeah, it is.
They had to bring, they couldn't just bring the formula. They had to bring the product of the formula, which was us.
Right.
And so they put us on these properties. And, you take ants anywhere, they're going to do what ants going to do, aren't they?
Exactly. They're going to build.
They're going to build. They're going to do what they're going to do. And so that's what they did. It's just that they figured out a way to capitalize. They said, hey, if we're not paying them to be doing this building, right down to the very plantation house.
Right.
We're not paying them for it. But again, and this is where it also goes hand in hand. When I tell people that there was no such thing as rent or evictions before the Emancipation Proclamation. Why is that? Because that is what they justified slavery with, that we have free places to live. So therefore, when the Emancipation Proclamation was ratified, this meant, now you have to pay.
Yeah.
So sometimes living on the same property that you were you still are working, but now it's not free. Now you have to give over a portion of your crops to stay here.
Yep.
Now you have to
crop sharing.
Come and work in the big house and cook and do additional services. And so this is what also led some people to foolishly say that we were in a better position when it was slavery, because it was they were using
the energy.
Village concepts.
Yep.
Plantations come from village concepts. But nothing can trump, no pun intended, but nothing can trump us having ownership of what we're doing with our time and with our day.
Right.
Nobody owns no ants, but they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to build.
Exactly. And you know what? Build. They think about that, say like how we got fresh out of slavery, just like you were saying, and they charged us and still made us do the same work with that crop sharing.
Same work. Sometimes more. Yeah. All of a sudden these properties have value.
Right.
When just, literally a year ago, it was equal.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Was equal. Right.
Now, we just said a different scenario that encompasses that same aspect when we said that you go from Dollar General to Chick-fil-A, giving away 2 hours of your life just for this value meal. It's the same thing.
This is it.
We go there, we work for them just for us to pay for the food that they're giving us. It's like, how does it's not making sense.
And then when we start to pull apart this, when we start to really dissect these conversations, we can see not only the ludicrousness of all of it, but also the hypocrisy.
Exactly.
The hypocrisy that will sit around and tell me, I couldn't do that, and if somebody actually called me a bottom shelf Oprah.
Oh my goodness.
They said, so let me get this straight. You and your family gonna live in the big house, but me and my husband, we can't put a tiny home on the back. I said it's an agriculturally zoned property.
Right.
But you're welcome to live in the big house.
You inviting them to the big house.
No.
That's that slave mentality. You don't want to go to the big house.
They don't want to go.
Like, how do you not want to go to the big?
She wanted to have her tiny home at the back. I said the tiny home. Let's do the math. The tiny home is going to cost about $200,000.
Oh my goodness!
$4,000. You have access to the big house. You can have your own
all
wing.
the amenities.
This is not a room.
Right.
You have a wing.
Right.
And she told me. She said she was going to tell her friends that I was a bottom shelf Oprah trying to get some money.
Wow.
And she couldn't even build her tiny home on some acreage.
Okay,
and that was my zone for that. But this particular property isn't. But you understand, property is leverage.
Right.
So only thing that you need to get property is to have property. This is, we learned this from playing Monopoly, right?
Exactly.
Property leverages property. And let me tell you something. I worked for a property development company in Miami. When they would go to acquire more property. The bank never asked them, well, how much money is this one property bringing in? They never asked them that. What's the addresses on your property? That's all they want to know. Where's this other property at? And they're able to get more loans.
Right.
And they don't. So this debunks the myth that, oh, well, you know, these people that own properties, that's why we pay rent, because it's a business, da-da-da-da. Banks don't ask them how much they don't ask them how much this business is bringing in. They ask them where are the addresses of these other properties. And that dictates how much money, how much credit they're going to give them to purchase another property.
That makes so much sense, because I just moved back to Corpus Christi, Texas about maybe 2-3 years ago, and when I moved here, I moved into an apartment that for some reason wasn't on the postal office registry. They could not find my apartment. But when I went to the bank, they had no problem putting my address on my bank account. So it's like, wait a minute, y'all don't work together? No, they don't.
Listen, 60% of your rent goes towards evictions, for eviction fees, filing fees.
Wow.
So I say when you pay your rent, you're paying to evict your neighbors. That's why I say F that rent, man.
Wow.
F that rent. That's really what you're paying for when you're paying your rent. You're paying to make sure that you're paying the law enforcement that's going to come out to evict. You're paying for legal fees. That's all that you're doing.
Wow.
That's what you're doing.
So
that's
you're
70%.
You're destroying, you're funding the destruction of your own community.
Ain't it grand?
Wow.
Ain't it grand?
I gotta give them. They smart, man. They smart.
When I say no rent, but you know what? This is what it said. They smart, but they can't be. But they studied us.
Yeah.
They studied us. They basically did everything that we did. They just put it. They capitalized on it. They put it in reverse.
Right.
Because in Village, it was no paying. You know, it was gift. It was we were growing this. We were giving this. This community produced this.
Yep.
So let's go and barter and exchange. Listen,
Yep.
Kingdoms were built.
Yes.
With barter and exchange.
Yes.
So how dare we think that couldn't be now? How dare we think that?
And we got to look at how it is now.
Way.
There are no empires right now since capitalism has came across. There's no empires.
Come on.
No villages.
Like we like to talk about Mansa Musa all the time, being the richest man, right? Had the most gold ever from anybody. I said, do you think this man was traveling with a caravan of gold everywhere? No. He was traveling with they understood that he had this, but hey, I'm bringing teachers to this community.
Right.
I'm bringing this I'm bringing spices. You know, this community cooks. I'm bringing spices. This is what he went around doing.
You know what? I've heard a story that that makes a lot of sense, because there's a little story that goes on that say he went through an Egyptian town and he threw out so much gold he threw the economy off. But I was always taught that he didn't throw gold. He was teaching the people how to make their money.
He was an educator.
And that's what threw the economy off, because it was so much, they was earning so much money that they didn't know what to do with it. It was sort of like the South having all this cotton. They couldn't sell to the North, so they had to do something with it, and it caused a civil war.
That is the goal. I think, you know what, this is what I said. It's so funny that you should say that, because I was saying the other day, because you know, here in Georgia now we have in Stonecrest the new Black Wall Street Market.
Right.
And there's a store there that sells, you know, books about, you know, our history, our civilization, Kemet, so on and so forth. And they were talking about, there was a theory that there was no gold. It was just, you know, people saying that he had all this gold.
Right.
But there was a theory that there was no gold, because I think the knowledge was gold.
Yeah,
and I think that people...
That's actually an ancient saying, knowledge is gold.
Yes.
Because it was the first currency. It was the very first currency.
There was a concept that people were like, you know, they never saw, you know, and I said, because how could he even, they said, oh, he had the most gold, this and that. Because he had been traveling with all that gold.
Somebody would have robbed him. Somebody would have robbed him somewhere.
Some caravan.
Exactly.
You know, and there's no stories of that. So I think that, and this is why it was this way, because, you know, and that's, we could never be robbed of our knowledge.
Exactly.
This is why education is so important to us. This is why education is so touted. And this is why we are marketed things that destroy that concept and understanding. You hear me?
Oh, I hear you.
This is why when we're talking about the foods and the alcohol and the drugs, this is why it's pushed at us so heavy in dividing our homes. Because when that's being done, who's sitting around teaching the next generation?
Exactly. But with your idea, with the plantation for reparations, we get these multifamily plantations. We will have the elderly there to teach the children while the parents go to work. Or go tend to the field, tend to the crops, tend to the animals, tend to the livelihood, while the elderly is teaching the young to do the same thing. And this is how we built empires.
This is how we build empires. This is how villages were built. This is how kingdoms were built. And this is what was studied. This is what was studied.
Wow.
You know, this is what was studied. This is what was stolen. It wasn't the product, it was the principles. That was stolen.
And that's why this is so hard to get out of this situation, because we're still living by the opposite principles, with the reverse principles that was pushed upon us with capitalism. We have to work our way out of this. We have to
it's the ugliest thing. I tell people, my name is Courtney, but I hate the C word. I really hate it. When I tell you I don't work no job, no 9 to 5, you know, and it's the ugliest thing. It's the ugliest thing that, you know, we think that that's the only way that we're going to ever accumulate some wealth is by implementing a capitalistic system.
You're pretty much working for somebody who don't know you but put a value on you.
Come on. And even with it being your time, this is why I took all the time. It's not about the money. Reparations isn't about the money. It's about the time. It's about your land. It is the land, and it's about your time, and that's the way it is on these jobs.
Yep.
You know, they can control what you are, where you're going to be for 9 hours a day. They can control where you're going to be. They control where your children are going to be.
Yep.
And I tell people all the time, people that, you know, because people always ask with Color Only Cafe, well, you know, do you have a brick and mortar? And I said, Color Only Cafe is everywhere I am.
Right. I
don't worry about it being a brick and mortar because I'm not interested in paying rent to do something I love to do.
Right.
You know, I'm paying rent to that and you know, this is just an extra, because I feel like this, if you have all of this extra weight, it does nothing but pressure you to put weight onto your patrons, to your guests. And, you know, 70% of my menu is a pay it forward menu item. It's whatever you want to pay for, whatever you can pay for it. You know, I only have 2 items on my menu that have a set price. Everything else is whatever you want to give.
Wow.
Whatever you want to give. I took a pay it forward concept from Amir Youssef. He's had a wonderful barbershop in Miami, and that's what he did. So, you know, most people come in, they pay $20, and that pays for somebody else's, you know, haircut. Wow. And I just love that concept, so I implemented it also with Color Only Cafe. And, you know, I just never want my guests or my patrons to feel like, you know, they can't have something that is needed.
Right.
The same way I feel about housing. How dare I say, you know, well, you can, and even my home now. So I stay in can't really see all of it, but I stay in a 2-bedroom. It's a pretty nice townhome, and you know, I told my husband I love, because he's a builder. He's a contractor, and what we're doing is preparing to gift this home to someone else. You know, I said I haven't paid rent on it in, you know, almost 3 years. What do I look like turning around and subleasing and saying, well, this is what you got to pay?
Right.
You know, so we're literally preparing this home to be gifted, you know, to someone. So it's a 2-bedroom. It's not much, but it's a 2-bedroom. But for all of y'all that don't want to come to the plantation.
Right.
Somebody can come and live here, you know.
Right.
It's rent free. Yeah.
Wow.
The utilities and all of that, but it's rent free.
Now that is paying it forward. That is what we need to be thinking about every day when we are looking in the mirror. Like, okay, who can I help today? Especially who
can I help today?
Like, that is.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
I told somebody that, and they were like, bros. But I said, you know, I feel the most. This is gonna sound so crazy. My husband probably would kill me for saying this. I probably would catch a lot of flack. But I feel the most like productive or achieved when my bank account is on zero, because I know I gave. Right.
It's a saying that was told to me about a month ago that I'm running with every day, and he said, you will never see a U-Haul following a hearse. So since you can't take it, you better leave it. Give it away.
That's it. And I said, if I can't do nothing else for my children, I have two. You know, me and hubby are working on more, but I have two now. I have two teens. But I said, if I can't give them nothing else, it's a place where they can always rest their head.
Exactly.
That's it. That's
beautiful.
It. No matter what happens, no matter where they go, travel to, this is a place where they can rest their head. And that's at this stage in my life. That's what I'm fighting for. That's what I'm fighting
beautiful.
For. I'm not fighting to give them no shoes, no clothes, no whatever. You can't see my shirt, but my shirt says "Retired Slave."
I like that.
I'm retired. I'm not doing that.
That's real. I hear that. I love that
Absolutely.
shirt.
Yes, we're living for passing it forward. And if I can't do nothing else for my kids, it's to give them a place to lay their head every night.
That's
that they don't have to worry about the what's going on with we ain't paid this, we ain't paid that. This concept of plantation reparations is the only reparations model that I've seen thus far, and I've looked at other places like Evanston in Illinois that have been fantastic with using housing as well. But it is rent-free, debt-free housing that would move legislation so that plantations have the same coverage that churches have.
Wow.
That is owned by us. So this is tax-free, rent-free, debt-free housing, period.
Oh, man.
We own it, and that's it. Only can be passed down to the next of kin. The land cannot be transferred, cannot be sold out. It can only be transferred.
Now,
be transferred.
All y'all people that's listening, we know how much y'all like church. Come on now. Get the same enthusiasm for this right here. I mean, this is housing. You can't sleep in that church. You know, the preacher gonna wake you up if you find you sleep. You know what I'm saying? But
they surely will.
You could definitely sleep in housing, and that's definitely something. That's an asset that can be generated, that can generate more wealth. So we definitely need to look into that.
Because that's all we need to do is, once we own one, that's all we need to do is to use that to leverage to get another.
Exactly.
So this can be the first one. And, as far as plantations go, especially this is a turnkey property. It's move-in, live-in ready right now. I've been working this property for over a year now. I please, just ask anyone I'm humbly asking for them to gift whatever they can for this initiative. They can look at all of the gifting opportunities or options on p4r.today. That is p4r.today. And if you want a private, link for gifting, some people, don't like to go through Cash App or through PayPal or what's the other one? Zelle. We do have private links that are directly into the trust. But again, those are $1,000. Those are $1,000.
Okay.
So if you're going to be using that link for your tax-free, I don't pay taxes, y'all, but I know if y'all do, and you want to use that link to say, then your contribution is definitely going to have to be a little bit more generous.
Right.
If you
right. Exactly. Because if it's like donating $5 ain't gonna do nothing for you on tax time. Come on now.
Yeah, but exactly. But you'll have your own link for the 1K contributions, and you'll be able to show that, hey, this went towards a movement, a revolutionary movement.
Yes,
and I really do know that we can accomplish this. We have too much spending power to really think that purchasing a $1 million plantation or $1.5 million plantation is too much out of our. There's no way we can do that. We can. We just got clocked doing spending $3 trillion in 1 year. In the U.S. Come on now. It.
So, I mean, we can stop buying Jordans. Let's buy some assets. Come on now.
Come on.
Jordan got his assets.
And this wouldn't even be, honestly, 1.5 and my ex-husband is a lawyer. But my husband now is a building. He's like I say, the contractor. So that literally cuts about $5,000 off of it because we don't have to pay someone to inspect and to appraise the property. So
wow,
see, we can get this for $1 million clean, and you won't even feel it. That's the sad and the best part about it. Right. That 1,000 people giving $100, you don't even feel this.
Exactly.
You don't even feel this.
Exactly. So, and it builds. You will definitely see the benefits. But so we are getting close to the end. We want to know, how do we get more information? How do we reach out to you? What's your contact? Are you on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, so on and so forth?
I am. Okay, so the main way to get in contact is p4r.today. That is the website for Plantations for Reparations. And there is a contact us. You can ask questions. If you want to know how many plantations are in your state, we actually have a database for that too. And again, we do this all for free. I don't charge for any of this. I appreciate a gift, but there has been no one, and we've helped about 30 people locate plantations in their states. I don't charge for that. It's only me running that information because I don't charge for it, but I can't control that somebody else will want to, take time out of their day to do it. But thankfully, I have a beautiful husband that is allowing me to have the soft life. So I'm always going to give a shout out to my baby, God of War _74 on TikTok. I am on TikTok. I'm colored only Courtney. I'm also on Instagram, though I haven't been on my Instagram in a couple of months, literally. But I'm colored only cafe on Instagram, as well as group glow up on Instagram. On YouTube, I am group glow up or Omega Courtney, which is just my first name backwards, Omega Courtney, and I'm on Fanbase. That's the new one. Me and hubby have a profile together on Fanbase. It is DOS, because it's two of us now. Okay. So that's DOS, and that is 44, the number 44. DOS 44 on Fanbase. I am on Facebook. However, I don't have any access to my account. So it's kind of stuck, but it does give some history also. Any of my profiles will give history of Plantations for Reparations Initiative, and that's the best way to reach me. And the reason why that's the priority right now, because, people say, where can I find your food? And I say, well, if I don't have a place to live, I'll be cooking in your kitchen every day and living upstairs. So the Plantation is a way that embodies all of that. We definitely do plan on still continuing the colored only cafe services. It will be porch-side dining. So it will be, just a phenomenal experience. Literally, you can come and have, dinner on the porch with us, every night if that's the case. And it's free. It's free. 70% of our menu is a pay-it-forward model. So if you need something to eat, you can come on over to the plantation, to the village, and you can, get a meal for free. Get a meal for free. So. This can happen, you all, and we can do it. If you want any more information, like I said, I'm very accessible. Besides when I do have events, and I do have them for the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, this week. But outside of the event, this is what I love to do. Having these type of conversations, we're building, we're talking, it's open-minded. I'm not trying to convince nobody. I'm not trying to argue with nobody. I'm telling you all that this is doable. This is doable. Take it from someone. I'm a former elected official. I'm a former educator. I'm a publicist, a journalist. I see how things are marketed, and I know that we can literally pull this off. It is just a matter of us making the right connections. So I'm all about making those connections.
Yes, I'm glad you definitely reached out and connected with us, because boy, this is like I said, I never heard of anything like this, and this is so beneficial. So I'm so glad you was able to break that down for us. You also said you had a presentation that they can access. Is that on your website as well?
That's on coloredonlycafe.com. Now that website, because that's hosted on a beautiful brother. He just moved up from South Florida to here to Atlanta. That's hosted on a site where the web designer is, all of my sites are Black businesses.
Right.
And that web designer, he does that personally. He updates that site, that membership site.
Okay.
So the beauty of that, though, the membership I think is only $5, $7 a month. But the beauty of being a member there is if you want to ever get involved with Colored Only Cafe events, you get a full list of events that happen, and we start programming. Whereas we'll have material that is a broadcast, and you'll have access to that exclusive footage and exclusive content. So it's kind of like a wholesome OnlyFans, if you will.
I
so
got you.
Colored Only Cafe. That's coloredonlycafe.com.
You know people going to have a hard time processing that.
People are informational, but Colored Only Cafe is entertainment. It's entertainment because, again, it's cuisine, it's culture, and conversation.
Right.
And so there's a membership there. But, again, very, very wholesome content. You won't get in trouble. You know, your significant other won't be going over like, what's my membership?
Right.
You can legitimately pull it up and say, okay, these are, because all of the events that I'm involved in, they're culturally sound events. I don't do no stripper fest and none of that.
They got OnlyFans for that.
Sound events. And the content, like I said, the presentation, you see my content, you see what type of things I'm talking about. But there's a full presentation, giving the background, giving the history, as well as giving the sources of support. Which include the National Coalition of Blacks Seeking Reparations in America in COBRA. We had two particularly impactful members giving great statements, one of which have visited the plantation with me.
Okay.
And have spoken on it. So you see all of this in the context of the presentation. And this presentation is actually what I give when I go to universities, or when I go to those corporations, and this is the pitch. And like I say, I don't do them often because I'm not looking for someone trying to get an ROI, or return of investment. Right. But it does give a full layout of why, what, when, where, and how.
Perfect. Yeah. Wow. Again, it's mind blowing with all this information that's. I could see a very great benefit. And just imagine if all 14% of the United States just went and lived on plantation houses. How much better we would be.
Come on.
Oh,
and
man.
That's what's so funny, because we talk about separation. A lot of us do. But a lot of us, I had literally 2 families last month. They talk about separation, but they say, oh, well, I just signed a lease. And what does that mean?
Damn, nothing to do with that. There's ways to break leases legally. And even if you were thinking about leaving the plantation and going to live in a plantation, you won't care about breaking that lease. It's not going to affect you later.
That's what I said. Literally 2 families last month told me, well, I just got to. I said, and we say that like that's an accomplishment, because guess what? If they want you out there, they still will figure out a way to just, they'll tear that lease right up in front of you.
Exactly.
There were, speaking of which, because you used to live in Atlanta, there were 270 people, 270 families, not 270 people, 270 families that were basically, it was a group eviction.
Yep.
They were given 2 weeks notice that they had to move out in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah,
I was actually going to ask you about that too, because it was after the COVID. They released the moratorium for COVID. They had to They went and filed, and it's like, you don't even care about where these people got to go. No, they don't, because
and some of those families had been, paying. Some of those families had paid, like I think the last 3 months, but they don't. That's why I said your rent has nothing to do with the property owners needing the money. It has literally nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's because it's business as usual.
Yep.
And it's property for more property. So they get all the people out. So therefore, if they're going to transfer that property, they're working with another group that's going to buy it. Now that group doesn't have to do it. So they do it. And they're like, hey, if you get all these people out by this or that date, I'll give you a whatever bonus. That's what that comes down to.
Wow.
That's where that number comes from.
Yeah, I heard the scam.
Nothing to do with what you were paying.
You heard the scam. You're literally living a scam, y'all. So if y'all worried about Plantations for Reparations being a scam, you living one. like every day. So just
that's what I tell people all the time. Like, you know, you working for a scam artist. You working at Walmart. You working for the biggest scam artist you ever worked for. This person is telling you that this tent that costs nothing but $1.80 to build, that they paid somebody $2 to assemble. Now they're gonna turn around and sell it for $140. And come some, you know what?
Exactly.
You scamming
big time.
You living in scam America. What are you talking about?
That's right. I like that. Scam America. Home with a scam artist. You right about that.
That's it. So they can't talk to me about no Nigeria, nothing. You know, so that's not what we're on. We're talking about the biggest scams ever, and this is, like I said, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not asking somebody to do something that I wouldn't do.
Right.
I don't pay rent. So what do I look like telling the next person, hey, you pay rent? And let me tell you, I don't pay rent. I ain't on no Section 8. Mm-hmm. I don't have any housing voucher, none of that. I made that decision once I suffered my eviction years ago. I said I would never. I didn't make a statement that said I wasn't going to be in a position where I wasn't going to, I was going to figure it out. Mm-mm. I just said I was never going to pay rent again. Once I started doing the research on where rent goes for us, I ain't paid rent since. And any job that I've ever worked since I've been evicted, I let them know, hey, this is what the cost of my living is. Right. Oh, you can't pay that? I can't work for you. One company told me they we didn't even put an offer on the table. I said, well, it doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, if it's less than this, don't put the offer.
Right. I can't. I'm letting you know. Right. If you can't do $2,000 a month on my living, I can't work here.
That's right.
Period. We ain't got nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
So we got to get bold with that.
Exactly.
There's no reason for you to go to a job that's paying you $10 an hour, knowing full well that the place that you want to continue to live in, that they can pull your statements at any time. You got to have 3 times as much into your account, and they can pull your statements. Y'all need to know this.
Yes, they do.
Know what you're signing away. They can pull your statements once you give them over that bank account information. They can pull your statements at any time. And if you don't have 3 times as much in there,
they can evict you.
That could be subject for an immediate eviction.
Yep.
Remember, on your lease it says that they can evict you for any reason. They don't need to give, as long as they give you a notice. They don't need to give you a reason.
Yep. And we just going along with the scam. Well,
That's it.
This is a beautiful conversation. We got to get you back on here. We're gonna have to get you back on here.
I can't wait. I really can't. Like I said, I love this conversation, brother. Yes. I love your profile. I love what you're doing too. And just, thank you again for giving me the opportunity. And you got to have. I can't wait when we come back. When I come back, I want my husband. Because he's quite a presence all on his own. So
all right.
I'd love for us to be on together.
We definitely. After we get in this broadcast, we're gonna stay on and we're gonna come up with a date where we're going. I can go ahead and start promoting that right now.
He's gonna love that.
All right. Well, everybody, you heard it here first from Courtney Omega from Plantations for Reparations and Colored Only Cafe. Wonderful conversation. Definitely a lot of information that you could turn into technology and improve your life. You need to reach out to her if you're actually thinking about building that community, rebuilding that village. Everybody talks about our ancestors, but nobody want to live like our ancestors. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that. You heard me? So we're going to go ahead and end it right here. We got a little bit of music for you after this, but make sure you go, if you need the information, look in the description of this podcast right here, this show right here, and grab her information, please, and reach out to her. Donate. Let's get this up and running. Let's make a real change. Our seeds, our children are looking for that. They need that. So make sure, if you don't want to donate, put this information in their ear. So when they get old enough, they can keep it going. Because we need to keep it going. We need to keep this built up. So once again, Courtney, is there anything we want to say to the audience before we leave?
No, thank y'all so much for having me. Thank you for having me so much. I've really enjoyed my time. I can't say enough, y'all. We can do this. We can do this. And we can do this, but we must. Right. We must. And y'all, I can't say it enough. that I wouldn't ask y'all to do nothing that I'm not doing. So, you know, I'm not paying rent. I'm not going to get in here and then start asking people to pay some rent.
Right.
You can see my life. My life is, you can Google me, Courtney Omega. My life is on, I'm an open book. I'm an open book. If you want more information, don't trust hearing it from this person and that person about what this is. Talk to me.
Exactly.
Talk to me.
Go straight to.
I'm ready.
Go straight
I'm
to the
ready.
Omega. All right, everybody. But y'all make sure y'all tune in. Turn up and zone out. Make sure y'all follow us on your favorite streaming service, whether it's Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, and more. And we up out of here. Y'all have a great night and replay this and get your pen and paper and replay this episode right here. This is your boy. We are out on
Southside Boss Radio. Have you ever seen someone do something so outrageous that you can't help but think, this stupid crazy situations happen all the time, and people get into situationships on a regular. So, what would you do if you were in their place? Check out our podcast as we discuss just that on What Would You Do podcast on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all your other favorite streaming services. Make sure to search hashtag What Would You Do podcast.
Nagra Beats. Scorp Beats.
Don't talk to him.
When I was down, ain't nobody give a shit. And now I'm on a nigga, gotta pay the rent. I done been there, I done done that ever since I was a kid. Said I always had ambition and my dreams was always big. You can do it. You can do it. Don't play no games. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, listen. You can do it. You can do it. If it's wrong, then make it right. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, you can do it.
I seen what it means to be stuck at the bottom. How the bit dropped in the cage with travesty hit it, and everybody just said drop 'em. I've been buried alive, left to suffer to die, but I swear to you, I never gave up. Niggas squirming on the ground, tell them stay down, but I found a way up. Ever since my mom passed, I wandered throughout the wilderness, and she's your dilly misses. I never get the miss, never got used to the awkwardness. I'm feeling deep down in my chest. Use it as a passion to drive to get up on the grind and try to make it out the gutter. Born in it though, so all I ever had was the everlasting struggle till I get a come up. And I can't stop there. My oldest Nasiel needs a house on 100 acres real quick. Joaquin needs his own business that would have him on all 7 continents making deal pics. Only thing broke would be the generational curse. I won't leave my children living off worse. When cowards gonna punch my ticket, then they got a brother leaving this all right here in the hearse.
When I was down, ain't nobody give a shit. And now I'm on a nigga, gotta pay the rent. I done been there, I done done that ever since I was a kid. Said I always had ambition and my dreams was always big. You can do it. You can do it. Don't play no games. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, listen. You can do it. You can do it. If it's wrong, then make it right. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, you can do it.
Fell from the top real hard, put in my work, you could call me Hustle Guard. Charged up like a cell phone, now it's on, so I'm guaranteed to make it to the top. Fail bad, let the fade blow away, took the rid, I stayed in with a bulldozer, made a new way. When you focus on success, it's the best desire when it comes to your different mind states. Wait, patience was the key when it all fell down, had to understand that it wasn't in the plan. Goddamn, many hypocrites, smiling as I fell, hoping that I break when I land. I couldn't see what I had, was a pocket full of trash, as all the cowards they claimed to be my friend. Really hung around for the joy, never down for the boy, never wasn't even my fan. Can I get a do over leave their ass when I'm sober? Gotta focus on the spirit, getting a little colder. Everything true soldier with a boss my frame. No way I'ma play, stop acting like you lame. I'm out of my business, doing me short. It's outside riding, staying in my lane. Baby.
When I was down, ain't nobody give a shit. And now I'm on a nigga, gotta pay the rent. I done been there, I done done that ever since I was a kid. Said I always had ambition and my dreams was always big. You can do it. You can do it. Don't play no games. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah. Listen. You can do it. Nobody tell you how to live life. You can do it. If it's wrong, then make it right. I'm right with you. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah. You can do it.
BOSS, Southside Boss Radio. Southside Boss Radio. Southside Boss Radio.